There are secrets that even the wisest among us carry in silence. Hidden treasures of the heart that emerge only when the world grows quiet and the stars lean close to listen. Tonight, we follow one such secret, a dream that visits Gandalf the Grey when his long journey through Middle-earth pauses for rest, when his vigilant spirit allows itself the luxury of surrender. This is not a tale of battles fought or kingdoms saved, but something far more precious, a glimpse into the inner sanctuary of one who has spent lifetimes caring for others, and what happens when he finally allows himself to be cared for in return. So settle back into comfort, dear listener. Let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of ancient trees swaying in evening breezes. Allow your shoulders to release the day's tensions as we embark on this gentle journey. For in following Gandalf's secret dream, you too may discover pathways to peace that exist beyond the reach of waking concerns, doorways to rest that open only when we stop trying so hard to find them. The wizard's dream begins as all the best dreams do, not with fanfare or grand proclamation, but with the simple act of letting go. And perhaps, as you listen to a story unfold, you will find your own burdens growing lighter, your own spirit preparing for the kind of deep, restorative rest that heals not just the body, but the very essence of who we are. The fire crackles softly beside an ancient oak whose roots have drunk from this earth for over 1,000 years, its golden light dancing across bark that bears the scars and wisdom of countless seasons. Each flame flickers with the patience of eternity, casting shadows that seem to breathe with the slow rhythm of the forest itself. Gandalf sits with his back against this venerable tree, his gray robes pooling around him like morning mist settling in a hidden valley where time moves differently than in the busy world beyond. The day's journey has been long and winding, taking him through forests that remember the elder days when the world was young and magic flowed as freely as water. He has walked beside streams that sing lullabies older than the kingdoms of men, crossed meadows where wildflowers bloom in patterns that spell out forgotten names in the ancient tongue. His feet, shod in weathered leather boots that have carried him across more miles than most mortals see in a lifetime, finally rest upon ground soft with decades of fallen leaves. His staff, that gnarled companion carved from wood of the old forest, rests against his right shoulder, its crystal catching the firelight and casting gentle rainbows across his lined face. The crystal pulses with its own subtle inner light, a rhythm that matches his heartbeat, as if the staff itself breathes in harmony with its wielder. Tonight, there is no darkness pressing at the edges of his awareness, no urgent summons calling him to distant troubles. Tonight, there's only this: the fire, the tree, the gathering dusk, and the profound relief of a traveler who has found, at last, a place where he can truly rest. Around him, Middle-earth settles into its evening rhythm with the practiced grace of a world that has performed this transition countless times. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale begins its liquid song, each note hanging in the cooling air like pearls strung on invisible thread. The melody, an owl calls from the darkness beyond the firelight, its voice echoing across meadows where dew is already beginning to form on grass blades and wildflower petals. The sound carries with it all the mystery of night, all the promise of dreams waiting to unfold. In the distance, a fox barks once, sharp and clear, then falls silent, as if acknowledging the sacred nature of this evening's rest. Even the insects seem to sing more softly tonight, their chorus a gentle lullaby that speaks of cycles ending and beginning, of the eternal dance between activity and repose. The air carries the mingled scents of wood smoke and rich earth, of pine needles releasing their resin to the cooling night, and the faint sweetness of night-blooming jasmine carried on a breeze that seems to whisper of distant gardens where peace grows like a living thing. Each breath Gandalf takes draws these fragrances deep into his lungs, and with them comes a loosening of muscles that have been tense for longer than he cares to remember. His eyes, usually so keen and alert, eyes that have looked upon dragons and balrogs, that have seen the rise and fall of kingdoms, now grow heavy as he watches the flames dance their ancient dance. The fire speaks in a language older than words, crackling stories of warmth and comfort, of countless nights when travelers like himself have found solace in its golden embrace. Each ember that rises on the heated air carries with it a prayer of gratitude, a small offering of light released back to the stars from whence all light came. His pipe, carved from briarwood and blackened by years of use, rests forgotten in his lap. The last of its smoke curls lazily upward to join the stars that pierce the velvet sky like scattered diamonds, each one a distant fire burning its own patient light across the vast darkness. The tobacco's sweet aroma mingles with the other scents of evening, creating a perfume of contentment that seems to emanate from his very being. The wizard's breathing deepens naturally, matching the slow rhythm of the wind through the leaves above. Each exhalation releases a little more of the tension he carries, the weight of watching over the free peoples, the burden of secrets that must be kept, the accumulated weariness of one who has spent centuries being strong for others. His hands, gnarled from age and scarred from adventures beyond counting, relax against his knees. The fingers that have gripped sword hilts and staff, that have worked magic and offered comfort, now simply rest, asking nothing of the world but this moment of peace. Even his great pointed hat, that distinctive gray cone that has become as much a part of him as his beard, tilts forward slightly as sleep approaches, casting his weathered face in gentle shadow. The brim, worn smooth by wind and weather, settles at just the angle to block the firelight from his closing eyes, creating a small sanctuary of darkness where dreams can begin to gather like morning mist in a sheltered hollow. A fox picks its way delicately through the underbrush nearby, its red coat gleaming in the firelight like burnished copper. It pauses in its nocturnal hunt to regard the sleeping wizard with bright, intelligent eyes that seem to recognize something sacred in this moment. For a long heartbeat, fox and wizard exist in perfect understanding. Two creatures of the wild, one at rest, one about to continue its eternal dance with the night. Then the fox dips its head in what might be a bow of respect and continues on its way, leaving only the soft whisper of paws on fallen leaves. Fireflies begin their nightly dance among the ferns and flowers that carpet the forest floor, their lights blinking like tiny stars that have come down from their celestial homes to play in the realm of mortals. Each flash speaks of magic still alive in the world. Simple, pure magic that asks nothing more than to be beautiful, to add wonder to the darkness, to remind all who witness it that miracles are as common as dewdrops if one knows how to see them. The whole forest seems to breathe in harmony now, a living lullaby that cradles the gray pilgrim in its embrace. Trees that have stood since the world was younger sway gently overhead, their branches creating a canopy of whispered blessings. Somewhere, water trickles over stones worn smooth by centuries of patient persistence, adding its voice to the evening symphony. A moth dances near the fire, drawn to light, as all living things are drawn to warmth and illumination. As sleep approaches with the gentle inevitability of tide meeting shore, Gandalf's awareness of the physical world begins to fade like watercolors bleeding into wet paper. The sensation of bark against his back softens and becomes something more like floating on calm water. The warmth of the fire transforms from external heat to an inner glow that seems to emanate from his very core. Even the gentle sounds of the night forest grow dim and far away, as if heard through layers of the finest silk. His consciousness hovers on the edge between waking and sleeping, that liminal space where magic flows most freely and the boundaries between what is and what might be grow thin as spiders silk caught in moonlight. In this threshold moment, he is simultaneously the gray-robed wizard sitting beneath an oak tree and something far more vast and luminous, a being of fire and light temporarily wearing the comfortable disguise of an old man with a walking stick and a pointed hat. His last fully conscious thought drifts through his mind like a leaf falling into still water. The road that brought him here stretches back not just through the miles of this day's journey, but through all the years and decades and centuries of his existence in Middle-earth. So many roads walked, so many friends made and lost, so many small kindnesses offered and received. So many moments when he chose compassion over convenience, wisdom over power, service over reward. And threading through all of it, like a golden thread connecting scattered pearls, runs the persistent whisper of a deeper calling, the knowledge that all roads eventually lead home. Not the comfortable holes of the Shire, though he loves them dearly, nor even the gray havens where ships wait to carry the weary to rest, but home in the truest sense, the place where the fire that burns within him first caught light from the flame that kindled the stars. 86,375. Soon, he thinks drowsily as sleep takes him like a gentle tide, carrying him out to sea. Soon there will be time for that longest rest. But for now, this moment is enough, this perfect pause in the endless journey, this chance to simply be rather than constantly becoming. Sleep calls to him with a voice sweeter than any siren's song, more compelling than any summons from kings or councils, and Gandalf the Grey surrenders to its embrace with the trust of a child falling asleep in loving arms. The fire settles lower, its flames growing smaller, but somehow more intense, as if concentrating all their warmth into a more essential form. The oak tree's roots seem to hum with ancient songs far below the earth, lullabies that have soothed. These lights dance and swirl in patterns that suggest meaning just beyond the edge of understanding, like words in a language he once knew fluently, but has half forgotten through long years of speaking in the tongues of Middle-earth. They pulse gently, synchronized with something that might be a vast heartbeat made visible, the rhythm of creation itself, the underlying pulse that drives the music from which all things spring. As Gandalf's dream consciousness focuses on this celestial dance, he begins to sense that each light represents not just illumination, but invitation, a doorway to experiences that transcend the boundaries of ordinary existence. The lights gradually coalesce, drawing together like mercury beads finding their way to unity, until they form something that takes his breath away even in dreams. Before him materializes a doorway unlike any architectural wonder in the waking world. a threshold that exists without walls or frame, without foundation or lintel, yet somehow maintains perfect structural integrity. It is composed entirely of starlight and silver mist, its edges rippling like water touched by the gentlest of breezes, constantly shifting between states of matter as if it cannot decide whether to be solid, liquid, or pure energy. The doorway stands in a space that defies description. Not darkness, not light, but something that encompasses both and transcends the need for either. It exists in the realm of pure possibility, where thoughts take form and intentions become reality, with the fluid ease of music flowing from a master's instrument. The very air around this portal, if air it can be called, shimmers with potential, pregnant with experiences waiting to unfold, adventures of the spirit that require no sword or staff, no walking or climbing, only the courage to step forward into the unknown. Through this threshold of wonder, Gandalf glimpses not another place in the conventional sense, but another way of being entirely. The view through the doorway shifts and flows like quicksilver, showing him fragments of a realm where the heavy concerns of Middle-earth cannot follow, where the weight of responsibility and the burden of constant vigilance simply cease to exist. He sees glimpses of landscapes painted in colors that have no names in any earthly tongue. Hears the distant echo of music so beautiful it makes his soul weep with longing. The doorway itself pulses with its own inner radiance, a soft luminescence that reminds him simultaneously of moonbeams dancing on fresh snow, of the first light of dawn touching the peaks of the misty mountains, and of the gentle glow that surrounds the havens of the elves when viewed from the deck of a ship approaching for the eastern sea. This light carries with it not just illumination, but warmth, not the heat of fire or forge, but the warmth of recognition, of coming home after a journey so long one had almost forgotten there was such a thing as destination. The portal whispers to him in harmonies that bypass his ears entirely, speaking directly to that part of him that remembers what he was before he accepted the limitations of flesh and bone, before he took upon himself the form of an old man with a gray beard and a gnarled walking stick. These whispers speak in the language of pure meaning, conveying understanding without need for words, touching places in his consciousness that have been sleeping for so long he had forgotten they existed. Come, the doorway seems to say without voice. Remember what you chose to forget in service of a greater forgetting. Step through this threshold and reclaim, if only for the space of a dream, the fullness of what you are. The invitation carries with it no sense of urgency or demand. It is patient as stone, eternal as starlight, content to wait for his decision with the serene confidence of something that exists outside the tyranny of time. Without conscious volition, Gandalf finds himself rising in his dream, his spirit form feeling lighter than his physical body has felt in centuries. The weariness that has become his constant companion, the accumulated fatigue of millennia spent walking the roads of Middle-earth, falls away like a heavy cloak sliding from shoulders that no longer need its warmth. Each movement toward the doorway brings a sense of increasing liberation, as if invisible chains he had not even realized he carried are dissolving link by link, freeing him to move with the fluid grace he possessed before time and duty taught him the virtue of measured steps. As he approaches the threshold, the lights within the doorway respond to his presence, dancing more vibrantly, arranging themselves into configurations that speak of welcome, of recognition, of a homecoming long delayed but never forgotten. These patterns shift and flow like living calligraphy written in languages of light, each configuration more beautiful than the last, all of them combining to spell out truths that can only be understood by the heart rather than the mind. The very atmosphere around the portal seems to sing as he draws near, not with voice or instrument, but with a harmony so perfect it makes the music of creation seem like a single note in an infinitely complex symphony. This song speaks of journeys ending and beginning simultaneously, of cycles completing themselves in preparation for new turnings, of the eternal dance between service and rest, duty and joy, giving and receiving that governs all existence at its deepest levels. Gandalf reaches out one weathered hand, though in this realm of dreams, even his weatheredness seems more like distinguished patina than simple aging, toward the shimmering portal. His fingers, which have worked so much magic in the service of others, now tremble slightly with anticipation of magic worked for pure wonder rather than necessity. The space between his hand and the doorway crackles with potential, like the air before a summer storm, pregnant with transformative power. The moment his fingertips make contact with that barrier of light and mist, the sensation that floods through him defies all comparison to physical experience. It is simultaneously the shock of diving into perfectly clear, cold water on the hottest day of summer and the comfort of sinking into a warm bath after days of travel through rain and mud. It is the exhilaration of standing on a mountaintop with all the world spread below and the peace of sitting in a garden where every flower blooms in perfect harmony. But more than sensation, the touch brings recognition, a sudden, overwhelming awareness of connection to something vast and loving and eternal. Through this contact, he remembers not just who he was before coming to Middle-earth, but why he came, what he hoped to accomplish, and how much more he has achieved than even he realized. The touch carries with it the accumulated gratitude of every soul he has helped, every darkness he has held at bay, every moment of despair he has transformed into hope. The doorway responds to his touch like a musical instrument responding to a master's hand, resonating with harmonics that seem to emerge from the very fabric of reality itself. The silver mist swirls more rapidly, the starlight pulses more intensely, and suddenly the portal expands to welcome him fully. The world of oak trees and dying fires, of physical form and earthly concerns, dissolves around him like morning frost touched by the first rays of sun, replaced by something far more wondrous and true. As transformation completes itself and Gandalf steps fully through the threshold, he experiences a moment of perfect clarity, understanding that this doorway has always existed within him, waiting for the moment when duty could pause long enough for wonder to remember itself. The portal is not an escape from his service to Middle-earth, but a deeper understanding of what that service truly means, a glimpse of the source from which all his strength has flowed across the long centuries of his wandering. Behind him, the doorway remains open, a gentle reminder that this realm of dreams and deeper truth is not separate from the world of his waking service, but its hidden foundation. Through this threshold, he has not fled from responsibility, but discovered its wellspring, not abandoned his calling, but remembered why he first heard it sung in the halls of creation. And with that understanding singing in his transformed awareness, Gandalf begins to walk the paths that exist beyond geography, carrying with him all the love he has given and received, ready to discover what wonders await in a realm where dreams and destiny converge. The doorway closes softly behind him, not with finality, but with promise, sealing this moment of transition while ensuring that what he learns in this place of deepest rest will return with him to illumine all his future wanderings. The threshold fades into the dream mist, but its light continues to glow within him, a star kindled in the depths of his being that will burn steadily through all the paths yet to come. Now Gandalf walks upon roads that manifest beneath his feet as he needs them, paths of crystallized starlight that wind through dimensions of experience no cartographer has ever attempted to map. These are not the stone highways built by the hands of Númenóreans, nor the dirt tracks worn by generations of hobbit feet, but something far more fundamental. The hidden arteries of creation itself, the secret routes that connect not places in space, but states of consciousness, moments of transcendence, islands of perfect understanding scattered across the vast ocean of existence. Each step he takes creates the path before him, silver light flowing out from the point where his dream foot touches the substrate of possibility. The road sparkles and sings beneath his weight, not with the ring of boot on stone, but with harmonies that seem to emerge from the act of movement itself. As if walking has become a form of music, each stride a note in a melody that has been waiting eons for someone to come along and complete its song. To his left stretches a meadow that defies every law of earthly botany, where flowers bloom in colors that exist nowhere in the visible spectrum, yet somehow remain perfectly comprehensible to his transformed vision. Petals of crystallized laughter catch light that comes from no identifiable source, their faces turning to follow his passage with the devoted attention of sunflowers tracking their golden god across summer skies. These blooms speak without words of joy so pure it has taken physical form, of happiness distilled to its absolute essence and allowed to grow wild in a place where sorrow cannot take root. Among these impossible flowers dance butterflies whose wings are crafted from fragments of Aurora Borealis, each wing beat trailing streamers of colored light that hang in the air long after the creatures have passed. They move in patterns that suggest choreography, composed by the same hand that arranged the stars in their courses, and their flight creates temporary constellations of beauty that bloom and fade like the most ephemeral of fireworks, leaving only the memory of wonder in their wake. To his right flows a river that challenges every assumption about the nature of water and gravity. Its liquid silver surface reflects not the sky above, for in this realm there is no fixed above or below, but images of moments yet to come, glimpses of futures bright with possibility, scenes of joy and renewal that await somewhere in the turning of years still unborn. But more impossibly still, this river flows upward, its waters cascading in reverse waterfalls that climb toward heights invisible, carrying with them the dreams and hopes of every sleeper in Middle-earth, bearing these precious cargoes to some celestial repository where they will be tended and nurtured until their time of fulfillment arrives. The very air in this realm tastes of possibility made manifest, each breath bringing flavors that have no earthly equivalent. The taste of a perfectly resolved musical chord, the flavor of starlight distilled into essence, the sweet tang of questions finally answered after lifetimes of patient wondering. With every inhalation, Gandalf feels memories stirring that predate his arrival in Middle-earth. Recollections so vast and luminous they can only be absorbed gradually, like eyes adjusting to light after long darkness. These are memories of conversations with beings of pure radiance, discussions that lasted eons, yet felt like single heartbeats, debates over the proper way to tune a star or the most aesthetically pleasing arrangement for a galaxy's spiral arms. He remembers councils where voices like instruments in a cosmic orchestra debated the fate of worlds yet to be born, where decisions were made not through conflict, but through the patient harmonization of infinite perspectives until consensus emerged like dawn breaking over eternity. Along these forgotten paths of light and memory, he encounters whispers that seem to emanate from the very fabric of the road itself. Voices that speak in tones like wind chimes crafted from crystallized music, like distant thunder that brings only comfort and the promise of refreshing rain, like the sound of waves composed entirely of laughter lapping against shores of pearl and silver. These whispers carry stories that predate the creation of matter, tales of when all existence was still song waiting to be sung, when thought and reality existed in perfect unity, undivided by the necessary illusion of separation. Remember, the whispers seem to say, though their meaning arrives not through ears but through direct transmission to his consciousness, bypassing the need for language entirely. Remember the music that shaped the world, the harmonies that called mountains into being, the melodies that taught rivers their courses and showed birds the patterns of their flight. Remember when you were part of that first singing, when your voice joined the chorus that dreamed all things into existence. The whispers speak of the time before time, when he was not Gandalf but Olorin, dwelling in the gardens of Lorien, learning from Miena the art of pity that strengthens rather than weakens, discovering from Manwë the secrets of winds that carry not just weather, but messages between the hearts of the faithful. They remind him of walking in places where every step was an act of creation, where thoughts bloomed into reality as naturally as flowers opening to morning light. As he continues deeper into this realm of recovered memory, passing groves where trees bear fruit made of crystallized wisdom, their branches heavy with the distilled essence of every lesson learned through suffering willingly accepted in service of others. Gandalf begins to understand that these forgotten paths are not separate from his life in Middle-earth, but its hidden foundation. Every act of kindness he has performed in the world of matter has sent ripples along these silver roads, creating new pathways for others to discover, new routes to hope for those who walk in darkness. He passes pools of liquid starlight that reflect not his current appearance, but glimpses of his true nature. Flashes of flame and illumination, of power held in perfect restraint, of strength that serves rather than dominates. In these celestial mirrors, he sees himself as he appears to the eyes of Eru Iluvatar. Not an old man with a walking stick, but a faithful note in the great song, a willing instrument in the hands of the ultimate composer, a flame that has never forgotten its kinship with the secret fire that burns at the heart of all creation. The path branches and converges, splits and reunites, creating a labyrinth that somehow never confuses because every route leads to the same destination. Deeper understanding, greater peace, more complete remembrance of the unity that underlies all apparent division. Along some branches, he glimpses other walkers, fellow Mayor who have also found their way to these paths of restoration, beings of light sharing the same journey toward the renewal of their original purpose and joy. The whispers grow stronger as he journeys deeper, speaking now not just of the past, but of the eternal present that exists outside the flow of temporal experience. They remind him that every moment of his service in Middle-earth participates in this larger reality, that every choice to help rather than to rule reflects the very nature of these silver paths he now walks. The whispers speak of cycles within cycles, of how endings prepare for new beginnings, of how the apparent conclusion of one song is actually the opening note of a symphony even more beautiful. You have never left these paths, the voices tell him with infinite tenderness. Even when you seemed most distant from this realm, when duty called you to walk the dusty roads of Middle-earth and tend the small fires of mortal hope, you were still here, still walking in light, still adding your footsteps to the eternal journey toward deeper love and greater understanding. The separation was illusion, necessary perhaps, but never real. And as this truth settles into his awareness like morning dew soaking into grateful earth, Gandalf understands that these forgotten paths exist not just in dreams, but in every moment when he chooses compassion over convenience, wisdom over power, service over self-interest. The silver roads run through every conversation with a frightened hobbit, every moment of comfort offered around a campfire, every decision to trust in goodness despite the apparent evidence of surrounding darkness. The paths begin to converge again, drawing him towards something that shimmers on the horizon of this realm, a destination that calls to every fiber of his being with the irresistible pull of recognition. As he walks toward whatever awaits, the whispers fade into a contented silence, their message delivered, their purpose fulfilled. The silver light beneath his feet pulses more brightly, and the very air begins to taste of salt and infinity, promising revelations that will transform even this transformed understanding into something richer still. The convergence of silver paths draws Gandalf towards something that appears gradually on the horizon of this realm beyond geography, a sight that stops him in his tracks with its impossible beauty. Before him stretches the white shore, a coastline that exists beyond the reach of any earthly ocean, where crystalline sand meets waters that stretch beyond all horizons into distances that encompass not just space, but the very concept of forever itself. This shore defies every expectation shaped by mortal experience of beaches and coastlines. The sand beneath his bare feet, for somehow in this approach his heavy boots have dissolved, replaced by the freedom of direct connection with this sacred ground, feels softer than the finest silk, whiter than snow that has never known shadow, and it sings quietly with each step he takes. Not the grinding rasp of ordinary sand grains rubbing together, but actual music, as if each particle has been tuned to perfect pitch and his footfalls are drawing melodies from the very ground that supports him. The grains shift and flow around his feet with supernatural fluidity, creating patterns that last just long enough to be beautiful before reforming into new configurations of wonder. Some arrangements suggest ancient scripts spelling out words in languages that predate speech itself. Others form mandalas of such intricate perfection they could serve as maps to the geometric principles underlying all creation. Each step reveals new artistry underfoot, temporary masterpieces that exist for moments before dissolving back into the endless creative potential of this luminous sand. Rising from this musical shore, the air shimmers with possibilities made visible, layers of reality stacked like transparent veils, each one revealing different aspects of truth simultaneously. In one layer, Gandalf sees the shore as it appears to earthly perception, beautiful beyond description, but still comprehensible to minds accustomed to matter and form. In another, the same vista becomes pure mathematics. Equations of incredible elegance, describing the relationship between longing and fulfillment, between journey and destination, between service and rest. But it is the sea itself that truly defies description in any language spoken in Middle-earth or elsewhere. These waters simultaneously possess the transparency of the clearest crystal and depths that contain not darkness, but infinite gradations of light, layer upon layer of illumination, descending into distances that could swallow galaxies, while remaining perfectly clear to his transformed vision. The sea reveals rather than conceals, each fathom adding new dimensions of understanding rather than obscuring the view with murky depths. The surface moves with swells that speak of power held in perfect restraint, forces vast enough to reshape continents, choosing instead to caress this shore with the tenderness of a master craftsman polishing a beloved work of art. Each wave that approaches carries within its transparent depths images and sound from across the vast distances of creation. Glimpses of distant shores where other weary servants rest in similar peace. Echoes of songs being sung in realms where music has replaced matter as the fundamental building block of existence. In these approaching waves, Gandalf sees reflections of his own long service translated into forms of liquid light. A wave carries within it the crystallized essence of every moment he spent patiently teaching Bilbo to see wonder in ordinary things. Another surge brings the distilled courage of every hobbit who found strength they never knew they possessed because someone believed in them when they could not believe in themselves. Each wave is a library of moments, a repository of transformations both small and great that have rippled outward from his presence in Middle-earth. The rhythm of these waves creates a percussion that resonates not just in his ears, but in every cell of his dream form. A heartbeat vast enough to encompass all of creation, yet intimate enough to sync perfectly with his own pulse. This is the sound of the universe breathing, of reality itself, inhaling possibility and exhaling manifestation in an eternal cycle of creative expression. As he stands transfixed by this display of infinite beauty, Gandalf becomes aware of presences in the distance, shapes that might be ships sailing on these impossible waters, though they move according to laws that transcend any earthly understanding of navigation. These vessels appear to be constructed from crystallized song, their sails catching winds that blow not from weather patterns, but from the breath of creation itself, carrying them along currents that flow between dimensions rather than merely across the surface of any single realm. The ships seem to materialize and fade according to his attention, becoming more solid when he focuses upon them, growing translucent when his awareness shifts elsewhere. This is not inconsistency, but responsiveness. The realm adjusting itself to match his capacity for wonder, revealing exactly as much as he can absorb without overwhelming his consciousness, no matter how expanded it has become in this place of dreams and deeper truth. From these distant vessels comes music that makes even the singing sand seem like whispered prelude. Harmonies of such complexity and beauty that they seem to reorganize the very structure of his awareness to accommodate them. The melodies speak of harbors where no shadow falls because light comes from within every surface rather than from external sources. They sing of cities built from crystallized joy, where every building hums in harmony with every other, creating urban symphonies of architectural music that change key with the moods and needs of their inhabitants. But perhaps most beautiful of all, woven through these celestial harmonies, comes the sound of voices, not singing in the conventional sense, but speaking in languages made entirely of emotional truth, conversations where meaning flows directly from heart to heart, without the clumsy mediation of words. These are the voices of the faithful who have completed their service in various realms, sharing stories of challenges overcome, of love freely given, of light carried into dark places until darkness remembered its original nature as simply light waiting to be awakened. The waters begin to whisper secrets directly to Gandalf's consciousness, bypassing his ears to speak in frequencies that resonate with the deepest chambers of his being. They tell him of Valinor, the undying lands, painting images so vivid he can taste the air of those blessed shores, can feel the warmth of light that never fades, can hear the laughter of reunion echoing from harbors where time has no meaning, because every moment contains eternity. But more than mere description, the waters offer him direct experience, allowing him to feel what it would be like to set foot on shores where weariness becomes impossible, not through any effort or discipline, but because the very substance of that realm transforms exhaustion into eagerness, sorrow into joy, endings into beginnings more beautiful than any starting point ever dreamed. The waves speak to him of connection, of how every act of kindness he has performed in Middle-earth has sent ripples across these deeper waters, creating currents that carry his love to shores he will never see with earthly eyes, touching lives he will never know he has affected. They show him how his patient guidance of hobbits and kings alike has created weather patterns in this ocean of spirit, generating favorable winds that will carry other souls toward their own moments of recognition and rest. As understanding floods through him with the inexorable power of tide meeting shoreline, Gandalf kneels beside these waters of dream and deeper reality. The act feels not like submission, but like communication, a gesture of respect toward forces that could overwhelm him with their magnitude, but choose instead to meet him at the level of his readiness, speaking in whispers when they could thunder, offering drops of wisdom when they contain oceans of revelation. He cups the liquid light in his hands, watching as it runs between his fingers like liquid starlight, each droplet containing reflections not of his weathered face, but of moments of grace he has both witnessed and facilitated. In one drop, he sees Sam's fierce loyalty blazing like a beacon in the darkness of Mordor. In another, Frodo's courage gathering itself for one more step when all steps seem impossible. A third contains Bilbo's laughter ringing out across years of comfortable friendship, while a fourth holds the precise moment when the Shire's gates open to welcome home heroes it had never expected to see again. Each droplet tells its own complete story of light triumphing over darkness, of hope persisting against despair, of love proving stronger than fear. And in the combination of all these individual tales, Gandalf sees the larger narrative, how his own service has been not a burden carried in isolation, but participation in a vast collaborative work of healing, a symphony of souls each playing their part in the great restoration of joy to a creation that sometimes forgets its own essential nature. The shore beneath him pulses gently with recognition, acknowledging his understanding, welcoming him not as a stranger, but as a beloved child returning after a long journey to discover that home has been waiting patiently all along, growing more beautiful with each passing moment in anticipation of this reunion. And as this recognition settles into every corner of his transformed awareness, the white shore begins to sing a new song, not just for him, but with him, harmonizing with the note he has been sounding through all his years of faithful service, creating together a chord of such perfect resolution that it seems to heal divisions he had not even known existed within the fabric of his own being. Standing there on the white shore with the eternal sea singing its secrets before him, Gandalf feels something stirring in the deepest chambers of his being, a warmth that begins as barely more than a whisper of heat in his chest, but grows steadily stronger, more insistent, more joyfully alive with each breath he takes. This is not the fire he wields against Balrogs in the depths of Moria, not the flame he uses to kindle campfires on cold nights when hobbits need warmth and comfort. This is something infinitely more fundamental, more sacred, more true to his essential nature than any magic he has worked in Middle-earth. This is the secret fire, the flame that burns at the heart of all creation, the spark of divinity that marks him as one of the Mayor, a servant of the Vala, a note in the great music that sang the world into existence. It has always been there, of course, burning steadily through all his wanderings, providing the inexhaustible source of strength that has carried him through centuries of service. But now, in this place beyond geography and time, the fire reveals itself fully, no longer hidden beneath the careful disguise of an old man with a walking stick, no longer dimmed by the necessary limitations he accepted when he chose to enter the circles of the world. The fire begins as warmth spreading outward from his heart, but it is warmth of a kind unknown to any earthly hearth. This heat soothes without burning, illuminates without blinding, energizes without exhausting. It flows through his dream form like liquid sunlight, seeking out every corner of shadow that might remain within him, not to banish darkness through conflict, but to remind it gently of its original nature as simply light that has temporarily forgotten itself. As the fire spreads, it carries with it memories that predate his arrival in Middle-earth by eons, recollections of existence in the timeless halls, where he dwelt before the world was made, where his consciousness first kindled from the thought of Eru Iluvatar and learned to sing in harmony with the fundamental frequencies of creation. These memories arrive not as distant historical facts, but as immediate present reality, collapsing the artificial distinction between past and present, between who he was then and who he is now. He remembers conversations with Manwë, the Elder King, whose voice carries the sound of winds that have blown since before the first dawn, discussing the delicate balance between guidance and freedom that would be required in the work ahead. He recalls walking in the gardens of Lorien with Irmo, the master of visions, learning how to weave dreams that heal rather than merely entertain, how to craft sleep that restores not just the body, but the very essence of hope itself. Most vividly, he remembers learning from Miena, she who mourns for all the wounds of the world, discovering that true strength comes not from the absence of sorrow, but from the willingness to feel pain fully and then transform it through compassion into something that can heal rather than perpetuate hurt. From her, he learned the secret that has sustained him through all his years in Middle-earth, that every tear shed in genuine empathy for another's suffering becomes a drop of healing rain somewhere in creation, that every moment of authentic grief for the world's pain plants seeds of joy that will bloom in seasons yet unknown. But more than individual memories, the secret fire brings with it a profound remembrance of purpose, not the specific missions and tasks that have occupied his attention in Middle-earth, but the deeper calling that underlies all service, the fundamental drive toward unity that motivates every act of love, every choice to help rather than hinder, every decision to build bridges rather than walls between the scattered children of creation. The fire shows him the truth that has been hidden beneath the surface of all his wanderings. Every word of encouragement to a frightened hobbit participates directly in the great work of creation, adding new verses to the music that shapes reality. Every moment spent in friendship around a campfire strengthens the bonds that hold the cosmos together, creating resonances that echo across dimensions and remind all existence of its underlying unity. Every choice to trust in goodness despite evidence of surrounding darkness strikes new notes in the ongoing symphony of creation, contributing harmonies that help heal discord wherever it might arise. As this understanding blooms within him like flowers of pure light, the secret fire grows brighter, warmer, more joyfully radiant. It begins to sing, not with voice but with pure being, harmonizing with the music of the white shore, with the whispers of the forgotten paths, with the songs of the starlight doorway through which he entered this realm of deeper truth. The fire's song speaks of recognition. He is not separate from the creation he serves, but intimately woven into its very fabric, not a guardian standing outside paradise, but a beloved child of the divine creativity that parents all existence. The flame reveals memories of his true name, not Gandalf, which is simply a useful title meaning elf of the wand in the tongues of men, but Olorin, the name sung for him in the music of creation, meaning dream or vision in the ancient tongue. This name carries within its syllables the essence of his function, to be a dreamer of possibilities, a visioner of potentials, one who helps others remember that the world is far more wonderful and full of hope than appearances might suggest. But even beyond his Mayor name lies something deeper. The particular note he sounds in the great choir of creation, the unique frequency that is his alone to contribute to the cosmic symphony. This note has never been silent, he realizes now, even when he seemed most distant from these realms of pure spirit. Even when duty bound him to walk dusty roads and concern himself with the seemingly small problems of mortal folk, his note has continued to sound clearly in the fundamental harmonies of existence. The secret fire shows him how this works. Every act of service, no matter how humble it might appear from the perspective of worldly importance, creates ripples that extend far beyond their immediate effects. When he patiently taught Bilbo to find wonder in ordinary things, that teaching created currents of appreciation for beauty that touched hearts he never met, inspiring acts of creativity and kindness in places he never visited. When he offered comfort to Frodo in the darkest moments of the quest, that comfort became part of the eternal reservoir of hope available to all souls facing their own dark nights of despair. The fire burns brighter still, and now Gandalf can see the network of connections that links every act of love to every other, a vast web of light stretching across all creation, where his service forms nodes of particular brilliance connected to countless other points of illumination created by every soul that chooses to serve love rather than fear, unity rather than division, hope rather than despair. This web is the true structure underlying apparent reality, the hidden foundation that makes possible all the beauty and goodness that persist despite the presence of shadow in the world. In this growing radiance, He understands why he chose to accept the limitations of earthly form, why he agreed to forget temporarily his true nature in order to serve more effectively in Middle-earth. The choice was not sacrifice, but strategy. By accepting apparent diminishment, he gained the ability to meet others where they were rather than where he wished they could be. By wearing the disguise of an old man with human concerns and limitations, he could offer guidance that felt achievable rather than overwhelming, comfort that seemed possible rather than impossibly distant. But the fire reveals that this apparent diminishment was always illusion. Even while seeming to be merely Gandalf the Grey, walking with staff and wearing worn robes, he remained fully Allarin the Maya, fully connected to the secret fire, fully participating in the great work of creation. The separation existed only in the surface layers of consciousness. Underneath, the connection remained perfect, unbroken, eternal. Now, in this moment of complete recognition, the fire blazes with such joy that it seems to light up not just his dream form, but the entire realm around him. The white shore reflects his radiance. The eternal sea catches fire with reflected glory, and even the distant ships pause in their journeys to witness this moment when a faithful servant remembers fully the source of all service, the fire from which all lesser flames are kindled. The secret fire speaks to him now in frequencies too pure for words, communicating understanding that bypasses language entirely. It tells him that his long work in Middle-earth is drawing toward completion, not because it has failed or succeeded, but because it has served its purpose of adding new beauty to creation. Soon, though soon, has little meaning in a place where all moments exist simultaneously. He will lay down the gray robes and staff, will return to the ship that waits in the gray havens, will sail toward shores where service takes forms more joyful than duty, more playful than responsibility. But this future completion takes nothing away from the present moment of perfect fire, perfect understanding, perfect peace. The flame shows him that every ending is preparation for a beginning more beautiful than any conclusion, that every apparent loss opens space for discoveries that surpass what was sacrificed. The fire burns without consuming, illuminates without casting shadow, warms without ever growing cold, because it partakes of the nature of love itself. The creative force that increases by being shared, that grows stronger by giving itself away, that finds fulfillment not in possession, but in the joy of endless giving. And as this understanding settles into every corner of his transformed awareness, like morning light filling a beloved room, Gandalf knows with perfect certainty that this fire will never leave him again, never again be hidden even partially from his conscious awareness. Whether he walks as the gray pilgrim on the roads of Middle-earth or as Allarin in the blessed realm, whether he serves in forms yet unimagined in realms yet to be created, this secret fire will burn openly in his heart, available not just to sustain him, but to kindle hope and wonder in every soul blessed to encounter its warmth. The secret fire burns so brightly within Gandalf now that it begins to transform the very fabric of his dream, reshaping the landscape of his inner vision until the white shore and its eternal sea start to blend and merge with images drawn from his deepest affections. The crystalline sand beneath his feet grows softer, more verdant, taking on the rich green hue of grass that has known centuries of gentle tending. The sound of waves lapping against the shore gradually harmonizes with new melodies. The distant laughter of children at play, the soft murmur of conversations drifting from open windows, the creak of wagon wheels on country lanes worn smooth by generations of unhurried passage. As this transformation deepens, rolling green hills begin to rise around him, painted in every shade of emerald and jade that nature ever dreamed of creating. These are not the imposing heights of the misty mountains or the stark majesty of the peaks that ring Mordor, but gentle swells of earth that invite wandering rather than demand conquest. Hills that seem designed by some benevolent hand specifically for the comfort of small folk who prefer their adventures measured in comfortable miles rather than epic leagues. Dotting these familiar slopes appear the round doors that have warmed his heart for so many decades. Hobbit holes painted in cheerful colors that speak of contentment rather than grandeur. Yellow doors bright as buttercups signal homes where tea is always brewing and seed cake cooling on windowsills. Green doors the color of new leaves mark households where gardens are tended with the same devotion other folk reserve for prayer, where every plant grows in harmonious relationship with its neighbors. Blue doors like summer skies shelter families whose children's laughter rings out across the meadows like the most joyful of church bells, while red doors warm as winter fires welcome anyone in need of a hot meal and a place to rest beside a crackling hearth. This is the Shire as it exists not just in Middle-earth, but in the realm of perfect possibility. Every hobbit hole exactly as cozy as its inhabitant has ever dreamed it could be, every garden producing vegetables so perfect they seem like the platonic ideals of turnips and tomatoes, every lane winding through scenery so beautiful it would bring tears of joy to the eyes of any artist blessed to witness it. This is the Shire as it appears to love rather than merely to sight, transformed by affection into something that transcends geography to become a state of being, a quality of peace made manifest in hills and hedgerows, streams and flower beds. Gandalf finds himself walking along paths he has traveled countless times, but they are subtly different now. Not changed in their essential character, but somehow more themselves than ever before, as if his dream has distilled each lane and byway down to its perfect essence. The very air sparkles with contentment made visible, tiny motes of satisfaction dancing in the gentle breeze like microscopic fireflies, each one carrying the crystallized essence of a perfectly ordinary moment lived with complete appreciation. From every chimney rises smoke that speaks of home fires tended with love. But this smoke carries more than the promise of warmth. Woven through its gray ribbons are the aromatic essences of countless meals prepared with ingredients grown in beloved gardens by hands that know the secret of transforming simple food into expressions of care. The smoke tells stories of families gathering around tables where the most important ingredient in every dish is the joy taken in sharing it with those whose company makes even the plainest bread taste like a feast. As he continues his gentle progress through this idealized Shire, Gandalf encounters familiar figures pursuing their chosen occupations with the serene satisfaction that comes from work that feeds the soul as much as it serves practical necessity. There, in a garden that seems to glow with its own inner light, Sam Gamgee tends plants that respond to his touch as if they recognize a kindred spirit, their leaves turning toward him with the same devotion flowers show to the sun. Every plant under Sam's care grows not just healthy, but happy, expressing through abundance their gratitude for attention that honors their essential nature rather than merely exploiting their useful properties. In a meadow where the grass seems to spring back more energetically from every footfall, Merry and Pippin practice their sword work with movements that have evolved beyond mere martial technique into something approaching dance. Their blades catch the dreamlight and throw it back in patterns that speak of joy discovered in the midst of duty, of friendship so deep it transforms even preparation for battle into celebration of the bonds that make life worth defending. The sound of their practice, steel ringing against steel in rhythms too perfect to be merely functional, blends with the other music of this transformed shire, creating harmonies that speak of courage that springs not from the absence of fear, but from love that recognizes something worth protecting. Their laughter punctuates the clash of weapons, transforming what could be grim training into play that happens to involve swords, preparation that celebrates rather than dreads the possibility of needing to use these skills. Following the sound of familiar humming, Gandalf's path leads him toward Bag End, though this version of Bilbo's home seems to have expanded to accommodate not just the hobbit's physical needs, but his spiritual ones as well. The round green door glows with welcome, and through windows that seem larger and brighter than memory suggests, warm light spills onto a garden where every flower blooms in perpetual, perfect health. Inside, though he observes from outside with the peculiar logic of dreams that allows simultaneous inner and outer vision, Bilbo sits by a fire that never needs tending, writing in a book whose pages never fill no matter how many adventures are recorded upon them. His pen moves with the fluid ease of someone who has discovered that the best stories tell themselves through writers who have learned the art of getting out of their own way. And every word he records glows briefly with its own light before settling into permanent visibility on pages that seem made of crystallized moonlight. This Bilbo appears younger than when Gandalf last saw him, but not young. Rather, he seems to have achieved that perfect age where the wisdom of experience harmonizes with the enthusiasm of discovery, where every day brings both the comfort of familiar routines and the excitement of new possibilities. His face bears the expression of someone who has finally understood that adventure and comfort are not opposites, but complementary aspects of a life fully lived, each making the other more precious through contrast. The book in which he writes contains not just his own adventures, but those of all the hobbits whose lives have touched his, stories that weave together into a tapestry of courage discovered in the most unlikely places, of ordinary folk rising to meet extraordinary challenges not through becoming something other than themselves, but through discovering what they truly were all along. Each tale recorded in that miraculous book adds new threads to patterns that speak of the hidden heroism that sleeps in every comfortable heart, waiting for the right moment to awaken. But perhaps most beautiful of all in this vision of the perfect Shire are the sounds that weave together into a symphony of contentment. The distant songs drifting from the Green Dragon, where voices rise in harmonies that celebrate not great deeds or mighty victories, but the simple fact of being alive in a world where friendship is possible, where ale tastes good after honest work, where stories grow more wonderful with each telling around tables, where everyone is welcome. Children's laughter rings out across evening air from a dozen different directions. Not the wild hilarity of excitement, but the deeper joy that comes from feeling completely safe to be exactly who they are, protected by a community that treasures innocence not as something to be preserved unchanged, but as something to be nurtured into wisdom without losing its essential wonder. Their games echo through the hills, hide and seek among garden rows, races down lanes that lead nowhere urgent, Contest to see who can make the most beautiful daisy chain or skip stones the farthest across ponds that reflect not just sky but dreams. As twilight deepens over this realm where the Shire exists in its most perfect form, fireflies begin their ancient dance among the hedgerows and flower beds. But these are not ordinary fireflies. Their lights pulse in synchronization with Gandalf's heartbeat, as if they recognize in him a kindred spirit, another being whose purpose is to carry light into dark places, to kindle hope where despair threatens to take root. Each tiny flash speaks of magic that requires no grand gestures or elaborate incantations. The magic of attention fully given to the present moment, of appreciation that transforms the ordinary into the miraculous through the simple act of really seeing what is before us. These fireflies dance not for any purpose beyond the pure joy of dancing, their lights creating temporary constellations that spell out messages of peace in languages older than words. The mill wheel turns with patient rhythm beside the water, its steady rotation marking time not as something that passes, but as something that deepens, each revolution adding new layers of contentment to an evening that seems capable of lasting forever without ever becoming boring. The sound of water flowing over stones worn smooth by countless seasons creates a liquid lullaby that speaks directly to the part of consciousness that remembers being cradled in safety, that knows what it means to be completely at peace. From somewhere beyond the hills comes the sound of distant singing, not the organized performance of choir, but the spontaneous harmony that emerges when hearts naturally attuned to joy encounter each other in circumstances that invite celebration. The melody carries no words, needing none, speaking instead in the universal language of contentment shared, of peace discovered not as the absence of challenge, but as the presence of trust deep enough to transform any difficulty into an opportunity for deeper love. As Gandalf stands in the midst of this perfect Shire, surrounded by sights and sounds that speak of every form of happiness that matters, he understands that this vision represents not escape from his responsibilities, but the deepest truth about what those responsibilities have always been meant to serve. Every road he has walked, every hardship he has endured, every moment of weariness he has pushed through has been in service of preserving and protecting the possibility of such peace. Not just for hobbits, but for all beings who choose love over fear, community over isolation, wonder over cynicism. The secret fire burns even more brightly within him as this understanding completes itself, and its light begins to blend with the first hints of dawn touching the edges of this dream realm. But this dawn brings no sense of ending, only the gentle promise of transition, from one form of beauty to another, from the perfection of dreams to the different but equally precious perfection of waking service, from rest to renewed engagement with a world that needs his light. The first touch of actual dawn begins to filter through the leaves of the oak tree in the waking world, painting the edges of Gandalf's dream with threads of rose and gold that speak of transitions as gentle as they are inevitable. The perfect Shire of his vision doesn't fade so much as gradually merge with the returning awareness of his physical form. The two realities blending like watercolors bleeding together on wet paper until it becomes impossible to say where dream ends and waking begins. The secret fire that blazed so brightly within him during the deepest phases of his journey now settles into a steady, warm glow that he knows will never again be hidden from his conscious awareness. It burns quietly but persistently in the region of his heart, a constant reminder of the truth his dream has revealed, that he is never alone, never truly separated from the source of all comfort and strength, never without access to the peace that surpasses understanding. His eyes open slowly, gradually, like flowers unfurling their petals to greet the morning light. The transition from dream to waking consciousness happens with unusual smoothness, without the jarring displacement that usually accompanies the return from sleep. Instead, he experiences a sense of continuity, as if his dream and his waking life are simply different movements in the same eternal symphony, each beautiful in its own way, each necessary for the full expression of the music that shapes his existence. The fire beside him has burned down to embers now, but these glowing coals seem to pulse in rhythm with the flame that burns within his chest, creating a visual echo of the inner warmth that sustained him through his journey into the realm of deepest rest. The light they cast is gentler than it was during the night, but somehow more penetrating, revealing details of his surroundings that the brighter flames had left hidden in shadow. Around him, the forest continues its ancient morning ritual with the unhurried grace of countless previous dawns. Dew sparkles on spiderwebs strung between fern fronds, each droplet catching the early light and throwing it back in tiny rainbows that speak of beauty too small for most eyes to notice, but too precious for the awakened heart to overlook. Birds begin their dawn chorus with tentative experimental notes that gradually build into full-throated celebration of another day's gift of existence. The air smells of morning in the deep woods, clean and cool and full of possibilities, carrying hints of flowers just beginning to open their faces to the sun, of stream water running clear over stones polished smooth by centuries of patient flow. Each breath Gandalf takes seems to carry not just oxygen but renewed purpose, as if the very atmosphere has been charged with the energy of fresh beginnings. But perhaps most remarkably, he carries with him now the vivid memory of every moment of his dream journey. Not the way most dreams are remembered, in fragments that fade like morning mist, but with crystalline clarity that makes each experience as real and present as his current awareness of bark against his back and dew-dampened earth beneath his feet. The doorway of starlight, the forgotten paths of silver, the white shore with its eternal sea, the blazing recognition of the secret fire, the perfect peace of the Dreamshire, all of it remains accessible to his consciousness, not as memory, but as ongoing reality that he can enter again whenever the need for such deep rest calls to him. This is the gift his dream has given him, the knowledge that peace is not something external to be sought, but something internal to be recognized, not a destination to be reached, but a quality of awareness to be cultivated. The realm he visited in sleep exists within him always, available not just in dreams, but in any moment when he remembers his true nature, when he allows the secret fire to burn openly in his consciousness, when he chooses to see with the eyes of love rather than the eyes of mere duty. Slowly, carefully, Gandalf begins the process of returning fully to his physical form and earthly concerns. But he moves without haste, savoring these moments of transition, allowing his consciousness to settle gradually back into the familiar patterns of linear time and sequential thought. The wisdom of his dream teaches him that such transitions are sacred opportunities to carry the peace of deeper realms into the world of action and responsibility. He flexes fingers that feel somehow more nimble than when he fell asleep, stretches muscles that seem to have been renewed not just by rest, but by remembrance of their essential nature as temporary vessels for eternal spirit. His staff, when he reaches for it, feels lighter in his grip, not because it's what has changed, but because his relationship to the burden of carrying it has been transformed by understanding. Standing slowly, he takes a moment to honor the oak tree that has served as his sanctuary through the night. His hand rests against its bark with gratitude for the shelter it provided, for the patient strength it represented during his hours of vulnerability, for the way its ancient presence seemed to guard the threshold between waking and dreaming. The tree seems to acknowledge his thanks with a subtle shift in the quality of light filtering through its leaves, a momentary intensification of the green-gold illumination that speaks of recognition shared between old friends. The dying fire receives similar attention as Gandalf carefully banks its remaining coals, ensuring that no spark will spread to kindle unwanted flames, while preserving enough heat to make rekindling possible should another traveler happen upon this spot and need its warmth. This small act of care for future visitors carries within it the essence of all service, the willingness to think beyond one's immediate needs, to leave the world slightly better than one found it, to plant seeds of comfort that others might harvest in their own times of need. As he shoulders his pack and takes up his staff for the day's journey ahead, Gandalf carries with him more than the physical necessities of travel. He bears within his renewed consciousness the living memory of perfect peace, the certainty that no matter how difficult the road ahead might become, he walks it not alone, but in constant communion with sources of strength and wisdom that transcend any earthly challenge. The path ahead winds away from his resting place, through morning forests still jeweled with dew, leading toward whatever adventures and responsibilities await. But he steps onto this path with lighter feet than he has known in years, not because his duties have diminished, but because his understanding of their purpose has deepened. Every step he takes now participates consciously in the great work of creation. Every word he speaks carries with it the warmth of the secret fire. Every act of service flows from the inexhaustible well of peace he has rediscovered in the depths of faithful dreams. And if you, dear listener, have journeyed with Gandalf through these secret realms of rest and recognition, perhaps you too have discovered something worth carrying into your own waking hours. Perhaps you have glimpsed the shore that awaits all who serve with love, or felt the warmth of the fire that burns beyond all darkness, or walked the silver paths that connect all hearts committed to the work of healing and hope. Sleep well now, knowing that your own dreams may hold doorways to wonder you have never imagined. Rest deeply, trusting that peace is always closer than you think, always available to those who remember that they are beloved children of the same creative love that kindles stars and grows flowers and whispers lullabies in the wind through ancient trees. And when morning comes to call you back to your own service in the waking world, may you rise as Gandalf rose, renewed, remembering, ready to carry light wherever shadows gather, knowing that every act of love adds new verses to the song that shapes all worlds. The secret fire burns steadily within all who dare to kindle it with the spark of genuine care for others. May its warmth be with you always, in dreams and in waking, in rest and in service, until all paths lead home and all journeys end in joy.